Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today, we're talking about the Chicago Bulls and their improvements on the offensive side of the ball, and why those improvements may not be helping Chicago as much as it had hoped for. So, we'll just sort of go straight at it. The Bulls have improved their offensive numbers so far this season. While the team is still just 16th in the league in total offensive rating, they are second in the league in pace, and they have moved into or close to the top 10 in quite a few sort of scoring categories here, right? If we take a look down the list in terms of points, they are 7th in the league, 9th in field goals, 8th in field goal attempts, 2nd in three-pointers made, 3rd in three-point attempts, 5th in three-point percentage, 5th in assists, and 11th in total field goal percentage. So they are doing pretty well in terms of scoring, doing so fairly efficiently as well. 4 of the team's starting 5 are averaging double-digit points, and their 2 leading scorers, Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, are combining for 43.2 points between them on a pretty efficient 54.5% shooting from the field. So, the offense is looking pretty good. They've moved into the top 10 in most of those categories. As I said, their star players are producing, but if you look at the Bulls' record, they are sitting currently, as of the recording of this video, at 7-11, which is not bad, but it's also not great, right? And maybe not where you would expect a team that's a borderline top 10 offense to be in terms of their overall record. So, the problem is on the other side of the ball. The defensive end has been the issue for the Bulls here. Their offense is proving itself to be good, but not strong enough or consistent enough to make up for one of the league's worst defenses at this point. If you take the defensive side of all of those scoring metrics that I was just talking about for their offense, you'll kind of see what the problem is here, right? The Bulls' defense in terms of points is last in the league, 30th. They are 30th in field goals allowed. They are 30th in field goal attempts allowed. They are 30th in field goal percentage against, 16th in three-pointers made, 22nd in three-point attempts allowed, 30th in the league in assists allowed, and just to put a lone bright spot in there, they are 10th in the league in three-point percentage against. So at least there's one little sort of bit of good news there, but across the board, the Bulls defense is pretty terrible. Adding a little bit more to that as well, they're also last in 2-point field goals allowed, 2-point field goal attempts allowed, 2-point field goal percentage against, and points in the paint. So their interior defense is terrible, pretty much the worst in the league, and it's resulting in some particularly bad losses for this team. The average margin of loss for the Bulls in their 11 losses is 15.5 points. Out of their 11 losses on the season, only 4 of them have been by single digits, and none of them have been by any fewer than 6 points. So it's not like they're losing particularly close games. These are all sort of 2-possession losses or more. And as I mentioned before, the Bulls defense gives up the most points per game. That number is 123.9. And that number is a bit unfortunate, right? Because if you look at the team that has the highest scoring average so far this season, that is Cleveland. The Cavaliers are averaging 123.4 points per game, which means that win or lose, any team that is playing the Chicago Bulls is averaging, statistically, more points than the number 1 scoring offense in the league. So on any given night in the NBA so far this season, the best offense that night was any offense playing the Chicago Bulls. That is how bad their defense is from a statistical standpoint. That's just going to sink any chance that your team has of performing well. 7-11 is certainly not bad right now, but that's not sustainable across the entirety of the regular season if your defense is going to be this just bad. So the question is, how do the Bulls fix this? How do the Bulls want to handle this? And that question leads to sort of a side question, which is, do the Bulls even want to fix this, right? We'll get to that point in a second. But in terms of possible solutions to the problem, in theory at least, that does exist, right? We have seen a team go offensively oriented at the expense of their defense and still, for the most part, come out on top. We saw it just last season in the form of the Indiana Pacers, who have become sort of the poster child for the, play fast and, focus on offense and have defense being maybe a secondary concern. They were a mostly offensive team last season. It led them to a relatively deep playoff run. Granted, the team's defense did improve significantly in the statistical categories once they got to the playoffs, but for the regular season at least, they were almost exclusively focused on the offensive end. The Pacers were not a good defense last year in the regular season. However, they were not dead last, right? They were not last in scoring categories on the defensive end. So if you're looking to apply that blueprint to the Bulls, yeah, the Bulls don't have to be good on defense. They don't even have to really get up to league average, but they do need to make sure that they're not bottom in the league. They need to make sure they're not in the bottom sort of 3 to 5. If they can do that, then you look at their offensive production and there's hope, right? Especially if you take a look at the outside shooting. Chicago's still one of the elite three-point shooting teams in the league so far this season. Second in three-pointers made, third in attempts, while being fifth in three-point percentage. So technically speaking, it is doable. You would just have to maintain your offensive production while making sure your defense is, bottom 10 instead of bottom 3. Is it doable? Yes. Is it going to be tough? Absolutely. Which leads into the other bit that I was talking about earlier, which is, do the Bulls even want to fix this? Because alternatively speaking, the Bulls could just decide to look to the future. They could pack it in. They could start looking at their draft boards, getting ready for whoever they could get in the upcoming draft. In that scenario, they would look to move. Guys like Levine, guys like Vucevic, guys who have been in the sort of trade rumor mill for multiple seasons now and have not been moved. Maybe this would actually be the year that Chicago looks to chip one or more of those players off and just full on tank for a better draft pick. Now, if you've really seen any of my videos in the past, you'll know I'm not a huge fan of teams just outright tanking. It always kind of doesn't sit right with me to have teams just trying to lose, but if the Bulls decide that that is the route that they want to take, then that's the route that they're going to take. But what do you think? Do you think that the Bulls can fix this? Do you believe that their defense could improve from being pretty much the worst in the league? If they do so, do you believe that would come at the expense of some of the team's offensive firepower to sort of balance the scales there? Or do you believe that this is not really fixable and that the Bulls should be looking to kind of just cut bait and start tanking, trade away those star players, and try to improve their draft position as best as they can over the course of the rest of the season? But either way, please feel free to let me know what you think. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.